My name is Daniel Hart, and for the last 7 years, I've worked as a private train conductor for a company most people in the United States have never heard of, Red Valley Transport, stationed out of Colorado. We don't appear on Google Maps. We don't publish public schedules. And our trains never stop at normal passenger stations. When I signed my contract, I was told that I was joining an operation that moves cargo too sensitive for the public eye. I assumed that meant government materials, military equipment, or confidential shipments. That was naive. On my first day, they handed me a booklet titled Non-Negotiable Operating Rules. Do not question anything. And that's when I realized this job was nothing like anything I had imagined. Rule 1 was printed in bold red letters. Do not ask what's inside containers. Ever. The train cars I was assigned to conduct were massive, sealed steel boxes, each locked with biometric security. Sometimes they rattled. Sometimes they groaned. Sometimes, late at night, I would hear scraping from inside as if something was dragging itself from one end to the other. Once, I heard a slow, heavy breathing, deep enough to shake the floor beneath my boots. I reported at once. My supervisor stared at me for a long time, then said, "Report noises again, and we'll find someone who hears less." That was the last time I said anything. Rule 2 was much stranger. No conductor is allowed to step near or look into car 11. The first night I passed it, I couldn't help but notice how cold it was. A thin frost covered its steel surface, even in the middle of summer. Sometimes the metal bulged outward like something inside was pushing against it. The weirdest part? Every time we braked, I felt the car tremble, not like cargo shifting, but like something alive bracing itself. Although the trains were supposed to be unmanned except for staff. During my third month, I saw a passenger. He was an elderly man, sitting alone on a wooden bench inside car 7. The lights flickered around him. His clothes were decades out of date. When I approached him, he smiled in a way that made my spine curl. Before I could speak, the intercom crackled, "Do not engage. Leave car 7 immediately." The old man lifted a trembling finger, pointed at me, and whispered, "You're late." His voice echoed long after I slammed the door shut. When I checked the manifest later, car 7 was listed as empty. We crossed Bridge 13 on every route. A rusted metal structure stretched across a dry canyon outside Wyoming. The rule was clear. Do not stop the train on Bridge 13 under any circumstances. When I asked why, a mechanic told me, "Because it wakes them." I laughed at the time. But one night, the automatic braking system malfunctioned, and the train rolled to a halt right in the middle of Bridge 13. The wind stopped. The night went silent, and from below the bridge, I heard clicking, thousands of tiny bone-like clicks crawling upward. As the train groaned, I felt the bridge vibrate as if something massive was climbing its pillars. I flipped every override I could until the engine roared back to life. I never looked down. Officially, the train only ever had one engineer per shift. But Rule 4 stated, if you see anyone in an engineer uniform besides the assigned engineer, trigger the emergency alarm immediately. I didn't understand why until I finally encountered it. Around 2 a.m., I walked past the engine car and saw Mark, or someone who looked like Mark, sitting in the engineer's chair. But Mark was asleep in the break room. When I stepped closer, the thing in the chair turned slowly. Its smile stretched far too wide, and then it whispered, "Seats taken." I ran. When we checked the engine room later, the seat was empty, but deep claw marks were carved into the steel floor. 6 years into the job, something new appeared in the rule book. A final rule written hastily. If car 11 opens, evacuate immediately. That was the first time I'd ever seen management look afraid. That same night, the train was unusually quiet. Even the strange cargo didn't make a sound. The air felt heavy, electric. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the alarms blared. Car 11 had unlocked. I reached the corridor just in time to see frost crawling across the metal floor. The door to car 11 was cracked open, just a sliver. A cold fog spilled from the gap, and from inside, I heard breathing, slow, steady, and possibly deep. My supervisor screamed into the radio, "Evacuate! Do not look inside. Do not look." His voice cut off with a wet, tearing sound. The lights flickered. Then everything went silent. Something emerged from the darkness of car 11. I didn't see its face, thank God, but I saw its silhouette, 9 feet tall, thin as a shadow, with long arms that dragged across the floor. Every step it took turned the metal beneath it to ice. It didn't rush. It didn't chase. It simply moved forward, as if stretching after a long sleep. Wherever its breath touched the walls, frost bloomed. I hid behind a toolbox, shaking so hard the metal rattled. While I hid, the train began to move even though no one was in the engine car. The thing from car 11 walked toward the front, its heavy breaths echoing down the corridor. As the train accelerated, the lights behind it shattered one by one. When it reached the engine room, the entire train went pitch black. I don't know how long we traveled in complete darkness. Minutes? Hours? Time fell apart. All I could hear was the steady rhythm of the train, and that thing's breathing somewhere in the distance. Sometimes it moved. Sometimes it stopped for long stretches. Once, I heard it laugh soft, low, like it wasn't sure how. When the lights finally flickered back on, the train was empty. Every staff member was gone. Clothing was left on the floor, as if people had vanished right out of them. The only thing untouched was the booklet of rules lying in the hallway, open to the last page. Someone had written a final note beneath the last rule. Car 11 wasn't supposed to wake up yet. The train derailed 10 miles outside an abandoned Nevada junction. The company claimed it was a mechanical failure. The government believed it. No one questioned why every camera in the area stopped working that night. No one asked why there were frozen claw marks on the steel exterior of car 11. They sealed the wreckage in a military warehouse. I was told to never speak about it. I tried to return to normal life. I quit the company, moved states, changed my number. But last week, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single item, the key to car 11, and a note. "You're late." The same words the old man in car 7 had whispered years earlier. The night after I posted my first story, the train horn echoed again through the Arizona desert. Long, low, almost mournful. Each blast shook my motel's thin walls. There were no tracks for miles, yet the sound came closer, clearer, as if the train were gliding across the sand. I didn't sleep. I sat upright on the bed with the key to car 11 in my hand, wondering who sent it and why now. At dawn, the horn stopped, but the frost lining my motel window didn't melt. When I checked out of the motel, I found something tucked under my windshield wiper. A new page, identical in style to the old rulebook sheets I used to get from Red Valley Transport. Only one rule was written on it. If the key activates by itself, run. Underneath it, in shaky handwriting, it found the others. I made the mistake of returning to Red Valley headquarters in Colorado. The place was supposedly shut down after the derailment, but when I arrived, the security gate was wide open, as if someone expected me. The entire building was dark, except for one flickering light deep inside the hall. When I stepped through the doorway, something crunched beneath my boot, frosted footprints. Dozens of them, some human, some longer. I went to the archive room where old route data and cargo record were kept. Every file related to car 11 was missing, ripped clean from the shelves. But I did find one dusty binder labeled 1924 Predecessor Operations. Inside were grainy black and white photos of a monstrous shadowy figure standing beside an early rail car. The notes underneath said, "It cannot die. Only sleep. Keep sealed." And below that, "Never let it reach a city." A chill went through me. This thing had been transported for a century. As I left the archive room, I heard coughing, a dry, ragged sound. In the far corner, an old man sat hunched over, his clothes torn and frosted with ice. It was the same old man I once saw years ago in car 7. He whispered, "It woke up too early. It's hungry now." I asked him what the creature was. He said, "Not a creature, a passenger." Before I could ask more, he added, "We try to move it away from the cities, but now it's moving itself." He pointed to a wall map showing every freight route across the United States. Red lines marked the usual tracks, but one line was new, hand-drawn in black ink. It went from Nevada through Utah, across Colorado, and ended in central Kansas near a large city. The old man whispered, "It follows the old tracks, the ones we buried." The key in my pocket grew cold. I felt it vibrating, softly at first, then violently. A new message appeared on my phone without any notification. "If the key vibrates, do not go where it points." But the key tugged toward the door like a magnet. Against every instinct I had, I followed. Behind HQ, hidden under a rusted storage shed, was a trapdoor leading to a forgotten underground loading platform. There were old crates, broken lanterns, and one massive rail tunnel that stretched into darkness. And parked inside that tunnel was a train. My train. Black steel. Frosted windows. Claw marks on the doors. It was impossible. The train had been destroyed. I had seen the wreckage. Yet here it sat, silent, cold, waiting. When I stepped close, the doors opened on their own. Inside, frozen clothing lay scattered across the floors again, just like before. Echoes, soft, distant, moved through the carriages. I gripped the key. It vibrated like a heartbeat. Then I reached car 7. The bench where the old man once sat was now empty, except for a piece of paper. I picked it up. It was another rule. If it speaks with your voice, do not answer. As I read it, I heard breathing behind me. Then my own voice said, "Daniel, you're late." I turned around, slowly, but no one was there. Further down the train, I saw movement. Not the creature, but people, passengers. Dozens of them, limp and frozen, drifting as if weightless. Their bodies were transparent, phasing in and out like fog. Some looked like former employees. Some were strangers. They floated silently in the cars, as if trapped between life and something colder. When I tried to touch one, my fingers passed right through. I approached the engine car, my old station. The door was locked, but the key hummed hotter and hotter until the lock snapped open. Inside, sitting in an engineer's chair, was me, or someone that looked like me, eyes pale, skin frosted, smile too wide. It whispered, "You left your shift early." Then the train lurched. The door slammed shut behind me. The dark hum of the engine roared to life. The train began moving on its own again, accelerating fast into the tunnel. I tried to open the doors, but they were fused solid. The other me in the engineer's seat didn't move. It only breathed, slow, heavy, unnatural. As the tunnel lights blurred past, it turned its head completely around, bones cracking, and said in my voice, "City stop soon." When the train burst out of the tunnel, we were no longer in Colorado. We were in Kansas, on an abandoned track surrounded by wheat fields. Ahead, barely visible, were the lights of a distant city. The train didn't slow down. The thing in the engineer's seat whispered, "It wants to feed." Frost exploded across the windows. The temperature dropped instantly. In the reflection, I saw something moving behind me. Something tall. Shadows darted between the cars, dragging long fingers across the walls. Car 11 was open again, and the breathing grew louder. I ran to the emergency brake. Frozen solid. I grabbed a fire axe and smashed it, but the metal was like glass. I tore open the maintenance panel and pulled every lever I could. The train only went faster. The city lights grew brighter. The creature's hand gripped the doorway behind me. Long, black, dripping frost. It stepped inside the engine car. I didn't look directly at it. I remember the warnings, but I could see its reflection in the cracked control panel. Tall, thin, its face buried in darkness, except for two long, white slits where eyes should be. It leaned down until its breath froze my cheek. Then it whispered, "Wake the others." My phone lit up one last time with a notification I didn't open. I didn't have to. The message glowed through the cracked screen. "Break the key." I snapped the key in half. Instantly, the train jerked violently. The lights blew out. The creature roared, an inhuman sound that rattled the steel. The train brake screamed. Sparks exploded from the tracks. We were seconds from hitting the outskirts of the city. 20, derailment 2. The train flipped. Cars tore apart. I felt myself thrown through shattered glass and frozen metal. Then darkness. I woke up in a wheat field at dawn. The train was gone. Not derailed. Not wrecked. Just gone. No tracks. No debris. No frost. Only two things lay beside me. The broken halves of the key. A new rule sheet. It read, "It's not on the tracks anymore." Last night, I heard the horn again, closer than before. My kitchen window frosted over even though it was 90 degrees outside. And on the glass, a handprint, long fingers, cold as death. If you hear a distant train where no tracks exist, if your windows frost at night, if you hear breathing outside your door, don't open it. It's looking for a new conductor.